when I had the shop and I taught a lot of workshops and I organized workshops, in every group there was always one person who was there because of burnout. And a medical professional told them, you have to do something fun, you have to find a hobby, something you like to do just for you. Those people all came like to do something creative with their hands because they hadn't done that in a long time. And I always saw that was so healing for them. Then I was like, I need to start drawing again.
Welcome to the Origins of Creativity podcast, brought to you by BooklingMedia, where we discover the magic behind creativity through the stories of passionate creators. Listen in and fill your creative vessel with delightful insights and uplifting tales. In today's conversation, our guest offers thoughtful advice on finding one's own rhythm and path in the creative process. We will hear about their creative journey, exploring how childhood wonder, drawing, and the love of building small imaginative worlds shaped their artistic voice. Please be sure to subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app. This way you won't miss the next episode and it helps others find us. My guest today is a Dutch illustrator whose vibrant, wonder-filled artwork captures the magic children see in everyday moments. After a creative journey through shopkeeping, teaching, bookmaking, and design, she's returned to her true passion, freelance illustration. She now creates whimsical worlds for kids' products and designs playful, screen-free printables that spark imagination for all ages. Thank you for joining us today, Lisa Manuels.
Thank you.
I am so excited to talk to you. I enjoy seeing all of your illustrations and, you know, what your journey has been between all of the things that you've been doing, which is amazing. To start us off, as you've, gone through things, what has been one of your favorite ways to create here between illustration and the printables, all of that? What do you think?
Well, my most favorite thing, I think drawing is my most favorite thing in the world, and it always has been, although it has been more in the background for several years in my life. It always keeps coming back, and it is like the thread in all of the things I have done creatively, or in my creative career, or a career, in general. So I think drawing always has been my favorite thing. Yeah.
I find this interesting, when we talk, I shared how you're inspired by how children see the world. Do you still consider yourself a child at heart to a degree in that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's my biggest inspiration, like the mindset that I personally had as a child, and I think I still have. So seeing like the little magical possibilities of the ordinary, and like seeing a toadstool and imagining there's someone living underneath, or like a little gnome or something like that, a magical being, and thinking like that, like always, even if you're an adult. And I don't really feel like an adult most of the times. So that's,
I can relate to that. I love that. That's probably what, I was thinking about when I was seeing your illustrations and learning a little bit about who you are. And so to describe to our listeners a little bit about what your illustrations right now, I guess, look like. You mentioned the toadstools. There's this cutaway aspect of these toadstools, or
an acorn, and
acorn in nature items that then you cut away and you see this little home, this little world inside of this, and it's adorable and it's fascinating. And I think that people are really drawn to that different way of seeing something in that space. So if you could maybe share a little bit more in your words of what that looks like.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you. I love drawing those. Those were actually like the cutaway illustrations that I made fairly recently. They were just some illustrations that I made for me, and they were just for fun. And I think the best work comes from when you're having fun. And I love making those because I can just like make myself tiny in my imagination and place myself inside that little tiny cottage or home, inside a mushroom or an acorn or a pumpkin or whatever. And yeah, I don't know what's it about being miniature or miniature things that excite me, but it's one of my favorite things. And I was thinking about that before this podcast because I was like, why do I love miniature things so much? I don't know. Why do people love small things? I have
Right,
no
right.
clue. I don't know. I'm not the only one who loves,
Correct.
yeah,
Yes.
tiny things. It's something cute, adorable, but it's also something what you said, like fascinating. And maybe it's also a way of having more control over like a tiny world, you know?
Right. Oh,
I don't
right.
know. Yeah, it's something like creating a tiny world, which for me also feels kind of like playing because I was also thinking like what does drawing feel like for me? Why do I love it so much? But it kind of feels the same way as when I was a kid and I was playing with my dollhouse. I had this Victorian Playmobil dollhouse and I still have it. It's like my prized possession. And I loved like making up stories and creating this tiny world that was all mine. And I think it's exactly the same with my illustrations. It's like sitting down and thinking, okay, how would a tiny home in a mushroom look like? And I'm just creating it. It's the most fun, I think, to do.
And I think you really made a good point where it was just for you.
Hmm.
And then it became something that everybody else could relate to because it wasn't, it wasn't forced. It was something you did for you. And everybody, there's plenty of people who can then relate. And I think that joy shows through those pieces, and
Yeah,
I think
thanks.
that's really important. And as you've been working on these, since there hasn't been the entire time,
Hmm.
because of that, have you found different paths or different success or different mindset through making these than other projects you had worked on?
Well, I do think there has, I mean, these kinds of illustrations have a lot of potential for me. It feels like I have so many ideas for these kinds of illustrations. So I'm very excited for the future to explore this kind of style that I've now created for myself, and I want to dive in and make like a whole lot more like this. But my work besides this, because this is like a very specific thing that I'm doing right now, but besides that, I used to make, I must say, because it has been a while, I used to make a lot of paper illustrations,
Yes.
and those were like hand cut with tiny scissors. It's the tiny again. So they were also very intricate, very detailed, very small and miniature. So it has kind of the same vibe, I think, the same
Absolutely.
theme. Yeah, but it's kind of different, like in the way I make them. But I have made one children's book, and it's called Post for Oscar, which translates to mail for Oscar. And Oscar is a little dog postman, and he delivers mail to different villagers in his town. And then you can see their interior. So it's also like peeking inside an interior that is tiny because I made it from paper in a like small
Yes.
way. So it definitely has the same theme throughout all of my work.
That's what it makes me, I when I was, seeing those things, I was, the tiny part. And if
Yeah.
I was a psychiatrist or,
Yeah.
someone who had that skill set, I would be curious to know the deeper meaning of these
Yeah.
interiors. And I love that. I just find them so adorable, but yet, like you were like, there's something there where, I'm for me now curious. What as your childhood, have you always been in the Netherlands? Were there places and older structures there that were different? You know what I mean? That nowadays everything seems to
Hmm.
be,
Yeah, very modern.
right, modern. And so,
Yeah.
would you say anything like that had kind of
Hmm.
inspired you as a child? I wanted to know.
Yeah. Well, I've always lived in the Netherlands. We moved around a lot, but in the same kind of area. And I've lived in lots of like very old houses, which isn't very odd in the Netherlands because a lot of houses are old over here. So you do have a lot of history and a lot of old architecture over here, which is very nice because you have beautiful cities with
Right.
the gorgeous canal houses and stuff like that. So it's definitely inspiring to walk through those. And I have, when I was born, we lived in a, I wasn't born in that home because I was born in the hospital, but the house we lived in was particularly old. It was like from the 1700s, I think.
Oh,
I might
wow.
be incorrect, but it was like ancient for me. It sounded ancient. It's not really ancient, but I was 4 years old when we moved away. And but that house has always like stayed with me for some reason, like this mystical, mysterious place where there were also like a lot of rooms. It was very big and it was very like a cool house. I can't imagine living in a house like that right now, but it must have definitely inspired me. Those kinds of old places with lots of detail, exactly, and lots of history.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was thinking. Over here, everything we have, everything I had was from, the 19th century feels like it on, so,
Yeah.
and the cut paper crafting, not crafting, art in that sense.
Mhm.
Have you kind of veered away from that for a little bit to go more digital in that world?
Yeah, I think I did, but it's not really like a conscious decision. It's just like a natural evolution of things, and I'm certain I'm coming back to paper one day. But
Right.
now I'm so excited about the things that I'm making that I'm like I'm
Yes.
all over the digital. Like I love my iPad and my Procreate and my Apple Pencil and all the things.
It is so nice to have the Procreate. Were you
Yeah.
ever using Photoshop at all, or has it always been Procreate? Or
Well, for illustration, I love it. It's so intuitive, I think,
yes,
Procreate. And Photoshop, I've definitely used Photoshop, not really as an illustration tool, more like editing, stuff like that. But when I started illustrating, I remember I'm like taken back right now. Like I'm
sure.
thinking back of making drawings just with fine liner on paper and then making a picture and then editing that in Photoshop. And it was really amateuristic looking back, but it worked.
So even through those struggles, there's got to be some kind of like a spark with this was challenging and really rough, but it kept, you're going to be wanting to keep doing it, continue
Yeah,
on and see what else you could do with it. And that,
yeah,
I think that's part of what makes people successful is that they're just going to continue to play.
yeah, exactly.
So as a kid, I'm curious, were you just drawing or were you doing other like a hundred other things with friends or how are you playing and were you imagining things and worlds as you played? I could see that being a big part of your childhood. And
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think drawing was always the main thing I used to create anything, but I did make like paper booklets with my grandmother, I remember, and then I was like cutting and pasting paper elements from a magazine and I wrote a story, but I didn't write because I couldn't write yet. So she wrote the words that I said, stuff like that. I love doing that or making like little magazines to give away to family as a gift. And I still have many of those like paper things that I made. I also loved making paper dolls and stuff like that. But I think creativity was always, it was always there, also in other ways. I was always like creating something. Sometimes it was stories. I wanted to be a kid's book writer when I was young. And I had this story, and I was like, this is a genius story. I was like really convinced it was amazing. And now looking back, it wasn't, obviously, because I was like 6 years old. But apparently, I wanted to create stories when I was really young. So that's nice to have been able to do that. I have been able to do that actually as an adult.
was your family creative in
Yeah,
sharing that love of
yeah, very. So my grandmother, like who was the mother of my father, she was very creative in the sense she drew a lot, but also painting and stuff like that. And my father is also very creative. He is more a musician, so he's very creative in that area. And he also painted for a while, I remember. And my mom is also very creative. She is more creative in the sense of, like, how do you say, like crafting, like knitting,
Yes.
embroidery,
Yeah.
and everything that has to do with textiles, like sewing and like all the things. But she was always very creative during my childhood. She had always had like a creative hobby. Like you had that time in the 90s where
Yes.
everyone was putting napkins on roof tiles. I don't know if that was a thing over there.
No, explain this.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like you had these beautiful napkins with illustrations on them, and then people peeled like the top layer of the napkins off.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, I don't know. They put
Wow.
it on a roof tile and then like with a kind of Mod Podge kind
Yes.
of thing, and they made like embellished roof tiles. I don't know why, but
That's
it was a
really
thing.
nice. We don't really have, I mean, there are roof tiles, but it's not
Yeah.
obviously something that we have a lot of here or that had,
Yeah.
been
Yeah,
used.
that's true. I've
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's
There,
true.
yeah. So that's a really, yeah, it's so funny to think of different materials and resources that are available different places
Yeah,
in
yeah.
more,
That
yeah, in abundance.
inspire.
And
Yeah.
it'll inspire something that you could use for that.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's really not interesting to know that what has been passed down to you from your family that you take in your own way. And I think
Yeah.
that's really, really fun. So I would like to talk to you about how you have gone from the beginning to then a shop owner and workshop teacher, how that was for you, and then that is no longer your thing, but how has it inspired you and pushed you in different directions? Just seeing
Yeah.
that experiment of having that.
Yeah. So I when I quit, or when I finished high school, I should say. I didn't quit.
Right.
I finished. Yeah. I graduated high school.
Right.
Um and then I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I wanted to become a photographer. I don't
Oh,
know exactly why, because it wasn't like I was like making pictures all the time, but it was like a thing that I did maybe in the months leading to my graduation. So I was like into photography.
sure.
And I got accepted at the Art Academy in Rotterdam here in the Netherlands. So I went to do that. And then I was only drawing all the time. And I wasn't making any pictures just because I had to, but it wasn't really my thing. And I realized that I do like making pictures, but not necessarily with the camera. So
Right.
yeah. And then I quit like 2 weeks before the end of the first year. So I didn't even, I think you get like after the first year, you get some sort of special thing in the Netherlands. I don't know what it's called, but I didn't even get that because I quit. I was like, I'm done.
That seems pretty normal for artists to just kind of make their
Yeah.
own path. This is the direction I'm going to go with this. And that is completely
Yeah.
normal.
It's
So
like,
I love
whoop.
it.
Yeah. But I was thinking about this because I could have looked at the illustration department, but I didn't because I was like, nah, that's not like, I'm not good enough for that. I was just doodling, you know. And and then I was at home because I still lived at home. I was like 20. And my parents and I went to a craft fair, a craft market in Rotterdam, and it was hosted at like a building with all kinds of tiny shops inside by different artists and makers and stuff like that. And they also had like a tiny studio and a shop. And my parents like made a joke like, maybe you can start a shop. And I was like, yes, I'm gonna do that. And I must say, I already like opened my own Etsy shop with my drawings and also handmade jewelry. My mom was also really into making jewelry. She had her own business making jewelry and teaching workshops and making jewelry. So I had my own Etsy shop, and then I was like, yeah, I'm gonna start a like a real shop. I had no money. I had no clue what I was doing. I had no and not any business skills whatsoever. But I did it anyway. So, and it
Good.
was very fun. I think I was just like kind of delusional or something, and very naive, and I just did it. But it helped me like get on this, what you say, like an experiment,
Yes.
and it was really cool because it grew out to something that I really like that period of time in my life, and I've done so many cool things because of that shop. And it was like a tiny shop in that big building full of other shops. But then I moved to a real shop, like in the street next to it, and then I moved to a bigger shop
Oh,
on the
wow.
corner, and it was really cool. And I had a workshop space, and I met so many lovely creative people, and I've still two of my best friends are from that period of time
Oh,
who
wonderful.
who were art academy students who did an internship at my shop, and
Oh,
now
wow.
they're like still my best friends, so it's really cool. And yeah, it was an amazing time, and I teach workshops. I did not only sell my own work because it wasn't enough to fill like a whole shop, so I
Sure, right.
yeah, so I collected lots of like handmade items by different illustrators, but also like crafters and people who made beautiful things that I
Ah,
liked. So I just curated like a little cute shop filled with like cards and bags and
I
prints,
love that.
gifts mostly. Yeah.
Sure.
So it was really a really fun and inspiring time. Um, but running a shop and also teaching workshops and organizing like small events, like tiny, I had also tiny, mini market. I organized the mini market, which was like a tiny market in my own shop, which was really cute. But I didn't have time to create
Mm,
myself.
yep.
So I never really pursued my own dreams as an illustrator, which I still did, but like very low key and very like I was all over the place because I was doing
Sure.
lots of different things.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So it was a wonderful time, but I didn't get to explore my own
Absolutely.
creativity in that sense. So
Right. If there are only enough hours in the day to be able to do both,
yes.
because that
Yeah.
inspiration from others and seeing
Mm-hmm.
their pieces and being, part of that tight knit
Community.
community is
Yeah.
amazing. But then that time to be able to make your own thing is that other
Yeah.
big piece that you
Yeah.
definitely need to have. But I think
Yeah.
that's really it's so fun, and that chapter is obviously very important, and
Yeah.
that how that builds on things, and even that tiny shop type
Yeah.
feel. Like I just find that awesome. When you were a child, did you grow up with a lot of fairy tales? It just feels very fairy tale esque and whimsical in that sense. And I can look back on mine and imagine that kind of thing, but I don't know how much that would have been a part of it at all for you.
Yeah, I think I did. Um, my father is a very creative man in the sense also that he has like a wild imagination. And I think I have that from him because I also have a very vivid imagination, and I sometimes it was a little too vivid, so I would like come up with scary things as a kid, and
Right.
I would scare myself, I was like, oh, I see something there, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I actually see it now. I didn't, but it was very vivid, so I think I got it from him, in that sense that he was always telling weird stories. And sometimes I believed them as a kid. He would
Yes.
say like, oh, I remember walking over here years and years ago, and I still see my footsteps here in the mud, and it was like just a footstep of a guy that just walked there in a muddy pool, but it was like,
Oh,
this is the swamp, and years ago he was here and he still remember.
I
I
love that.
like I
That's
I
so
remember.
cool.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, he's a very how do you, I can't explain it in a few words, but he has a wild imagination. It also
Yes.
took him like in places that I didn't want to pursue. So we also had like a very roller coaster kind of childhood because of that, and a lot of he
Imaginative.
also had like mental problems and issues and
Oh,
stuff like that. So it wasn't always fun, but it definitely inspired me, I think, in like seeing the magical things in normal life and
yeah.
like thinking further than just
Yeah.
like what's ordinary or something like that. So thinking outside of the box is definitely, I have something that I have from him.
And to have that direction then of the small and maybe, manageable and cute and childlike visuals is I just love the psychology of it. I really should,
Yeah.
look into that. I just love it. And because everybody's art is so different and it's
Hmm.
the whole point of this is why and where is it coming from and continuing to do it. We can all think, "Oh, I'll try this one little thing and then, move on to the next thing." But for you, for other, that's their direction. They kind of stick with it for some reason and then just keep going for it. And
Yeah.
that it's just very, very fascinating to me. So you also want to continue to do visuals for children's toys, and are you doing that now? At with you were talking about doing printables, and
Hmm.
puzzles, and are you expanding that? Are you really looking into that?
Yeah, I am. So I have been working, like after I closed the shop, I have been working just a part-time job as a graphic designer. So I did definitely do something creative in that sense,
Yes.
but it wasn't my own business. It was very far away from the things I did before. And then I got in burnout.
Right.
And it was like a whole exploration of myself and like finding myself again. And I started drawing again, and it was like it clicked that I have missed this so much.
Was it the burnout from doing the graphic design that wasn't your art, but just
Yeah, it was like a multiple faceted thing. I also got it makes sense. I also got diagnosed with ADHD. I mean, you asked a thing about like toys, and I'm talking about my burnout, but
no?
I'm getting to some sort of point in the
No,
end. But I got diagnosed with ADHD, and it was just like a whole thing. I thought it was like, okay, yeah, I already kind of knew that, moving
right.
on. But I didn't move on, and it was like I hit a brick wall and I couldn't work, and it was a whole thing. But when I got back into drawing and slowly got back into making things and thinking about what do I want for the future, and I was like, I finally want to pursue this dream that I still have. It's like making illustrations, and particularly making illustrations for children's everything. So it could be children's books, but also definitely toys because I love toys. I have like vintage toy collections and stuff like that. So I've
Oh.
always loved those. And also like puzzles. So I'm definitely working on that. But my point of the whole story about burnout is I feel like I'm starting all over.
Oh, right.
So I'm just like getting into contact with puzzle companies. So I might be
Wow.
making puzzles in the near future, I hope. And but I would love to make more than that, like toys. That would be like
Yes.
the dream.
I love
Yeah.
that. Wow, that would be really fun. And like you said, you've got printouts now that they can do, but
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
something more,
Yeah.
like the tactile pieces and parts that they
Yeah.
are using in their world, and that would inspire them to do what they're going to do with their world. And I think that's
Yeah.
really fun, and I could see that being great for you. You know, oh
Thank you.
wow,
Yeah. Yeah, and the printables, because I forgot to yeah, get to that, but the printables are a way for me to make toys in my own like simple way, because I can design something, I can illustrate something that people can just print at home and play with, so their kids can play with it, or they can decorate like a season table or nature table with it, or they can decorate their birthday party or something like that with that. And that's my way of, yeah, like making toys that are available within my scope of things right now. So that's really cool. And I love paper. I love making these paper toys in my own way. So yeah.
and I think that's great because if it's something that's very passionate to the creator, it'll again show through to the end product, and that childlike excitement for the things that
Yeah.
they're going to be excited about it. And I think that would be really, really exciting to see. It feels like you were saying, burnout with, I can see so many people are, might be making, toys or design. They're just trying to get through, and it might be too much, and it might not be as exciting and passion driven. And
Hmm.
I think the more that we have that, the better the product will be for that
Yeah.
specific thing. And and going back to the burnout part, it's never a fun, fun moment for
Yeah.
anyone. But, if you just want to share a couple of, if there's anything from that time that, you were missing, that if you had been drawing more for yourself, would that have healed things faster? Would it have gone differently? I know sometimes it's just a matter of we need that rest. There's that big break of you
Yeah.
must pause to regroup. So if you are
Yeah.
able to share a little bit more about that, because the listeners as creatives, or people who are pursuing creative career paths, that these are things that are important to hear from the professionals that have gone through it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It was, I think, like I said, it was a mix of things why I got burnout. But the main thing that helped me through, or what got me back to normal, I would say, is drawing, because I haven't been drawing before that. Besides, like, doing my job, it was a creative job, but it wasn't like creative in the sense that I could create what was coming from inside my head.
Right.
I mean, it was from inside my head, but like my imagination, that my passion and what I love most. It wasn't, definitely not that. And
Right.
when you're not doing that, like the creating part, I think it doesn't work, it's I don't
Things
know
don't
how to
click.
explain. Yeah.
Right.
And I didn't realize how important it was for me, although I have come to that realization multiple times. But I mean, part of ADHD is like remembering things is
Yes.
sometimes hard. and and I came to that realization that I have not felt like myself for a while. I also became a mom, which is a very big part, a very big change in
Yes.
life. And it takes up like all of your time, of course. And so I haven't been able to create something besides like doing my job, taking care of a baby or a
Oh,
small child,
absolutely.
and then like keeping myself alive and stuff like that. And then there
Absolutely.
was no like space mentally to create, but I actually needed it, but I didn't realize it. And
Yes.
then he became a little bit older and I got a little bit more time, but I still
Right.
wasn't doing that because it was just not in my routine anymore.
Right.
And then I, yeah, well, hit the brick wall, and then I was like, yeah, what do I do now? And
Mm.
I thought back to when I had the shop and I teached a lot of workshops and I organized workshops. In every group, there was always one person who was there because of burnout. And a medical
Really?
professional told them, you have to do something fun. You have to find a hobby, something you like to do just for you. Those people all came like to do something creative with their hands because they hadn't done that in a long time. And I always saw that was so healing for them. Then I was like, I need to start
Mm-hmm.
drawing again. And I did, and I was like, it was this like epiphany moment. The angels started singing. No, it was like the
I love
sun
it.
came through the clouds. No, but I had this moment of, wow, why haven't I been doing this? I've missed this so much, as like I lost myself and I found myself again. It sounds a bit cheesy, but it really was. Um,
No, I think you're absolutely
yeah,
correct. As you're speaking, humans almost tend to speak of creativity as a side quest, a side project,
yeah,
but to the core, it is who we are.
yes,
And if we've lost that, or some part of us is missing that, we aren't fully functioning.
yeah,
And it just reminds me how absolutely important it is for the soul. And
yeah,
no matter how what creative path that might be. And I think that's really, really nice that the medical
yeah,
side of things would say this is what you need to
yeah,
do. And I think we need more of that, because some
Yes.
people get lost in, where do I even start? And that would be a great one.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what we say, like, creativity is like a side quest for a lot of people, and it can be, but I
Sure.
think it can. A lot of people think creativity has to be successful to be a part of
Right.
your life. You know, it has to be commercial or like financially a big part of your life, but it doesn't have to be. You can also just be creative for you, and it can be very like for the
Yes.
soul, what you said. And like the workshops that I talked about, there were also people that I still very vividly remember that moment when I talked to them, because there was this woman who was like in her 60s, and she was doing this workshop because she was like with colleagues or with friends, I don't know. And she said, I haven't been drawing or creating anything because when I was little, like 6, 7 years old, I made a drawing and my teacher said I wasn't good at it. And since then, she hadn't been doing anything creative because she was like, I'm not creative. This door is closed. And she was having
Mm.
so much fun during that workshops, which was making stamps, I think. And it was heartbreaking, you know, to know that she went all her life without this thing that could have brought her so much joy, even though it wasn't her like day job or something like that. It could have been so fun for her and so healing for her. So it was very beautiful to see that she like rediscovered it, but also so sad that you think she has gone all this time. Yeah.
I mean, and one can put creativity into most any aspect of, a career, or,
Yeah.
somehow some piece of it. But to have that um, horrible experience to kind of shut down the child, to explore things is sad. But that is good to, have that come back. And like you said, yeah, it doesn't have to be a career path
No.
for every bit of it.
Or
If
yeah, for everyone or for every moment, because the things that
right,
I created to get back out of burnout, it wasn't like to make a living out of it. It was just for me, but that got me in this like momentum of getting back into freelance illustration.
right,
Um, so in that moment, it wasn't like commercial or it wasn't my
right,
job, but it was like very important to get to that part, you know, to that
right.
stage where I could think of myself doing it as a job again. So yeah.
As much as you enjoy the pieces that you are making now, when you get done with those pieces, are you thinking, what can I do now as a relaxing creative outlet? Is there anything else that you're doing, on the
Yeah.
side? Are you coloring with your child, or, things like that? Because
Yeah.
it becomes this job, but at the
Yeah.
same time, as enjoyable as it is. How
Yeah.
is it for you?
You know, it's the hard part of being creative as your job is like it was a passion first, and then or a hobby or whatever, and then it becomes your job and you don't have a hobby anymore. I still draw for fun besides drawing for like as a job, but I have like particular things that I like to draw for fun. um but I also like playing video games, and I also like walking in the forest and looking at mushrooms. I have this
Great.
friend who knows a lot about nature, and she's like all into mushrooms, and she tells me everything about mushrooms, and I love that. And I mean, yeah, puzzling I also love. Just like relaxing things to take my mind
Right.
off like ordinary
the
life stuff.
hard the
Yeah.
hard build of creating,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
hard. It seems more like a refueling,
Yeah, exactly.
with
Like,
something coming to you. And I
yeah.
think that's definitely, important for the creative to refuel
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
putting so much of themselves out onto the
Yeah,
piece.
exactly. Yeah, and I'm always like starting new drawings, you know, and then I'm like coming back to them and then abandoning them again and then coming back to them. So it's when I'm like when it's evening and I have worked all day and I'm like, what am I going to do for fun? Then I'm like,
Hmm.
I want to draw. So I'm just gonna draw something that's not my work drawing, but it's like a fun drawing. So yeah,
And
I
then that's
still do that.
dangerous because it might turn into something more,
Yes,
as you said before.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it,
But
it
that's the
always
best
happens.
kind.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the best.
Yeah.
As we're speaking right now, you're posting different holiday ornament cutaways, like the cross section of an ornament, and there's a room inside, or a little
Yeah.
bathroom, and that's really fun. And I could see that evolving into something. Of course, like
Yeah.
the wheels start spinning. Ooh, what direction could this whole thing? This could be this whole thing, and
Yeah.
that's fun, and that's amazing. As a professional, that there's always that looking at what could come from it, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it's amazing just to be in that moment and that space to just enjoy it.
Yeah.
And for us,
Enjoying.
the consumer of that visual is to, of course, enjoy it, and we're seeing that passion come through. So I love that for us and for you to keep making those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're looking into toy design. Is there anything else that you're really wanting to do for yourself, for you, for anything? What things are you looking forward to?
Well, I would love to make another kids book in the future. And the last book was kind of like a search and find book, with lots of details to
Yes.
find. And I love those books. I have always loved them as a kid, and I still do now. So I would love to do something like that. But I don't know, I don't have like a very specific idea yet, but that would be on my bucket list or my to-do
I
list.
would think that would be really fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
that would
Yeah,
be fun.
I think it would be also very fun to make. So I'm also looking like at that, what would I want to draw, and I would love to make a board game one day, like illustrated board game. I love
Yes.
playing board games, and my kid is very into board games right now, which is very fun. He's 4, so it's like he's starting to really get into it, and I love like the beautiful designed board games for kids. So I would love to do that one day. I mean, in the near future. I mean,
Right, right,
yeah.
exactly. Because that definitely falls into the toys and
Yeah,
things.
exactly. So
Yeah.
it's also toys, but I think that's the main thing I would love to do. But there are so many niches or like parts of illustration that I would like to pursue one day. I have lots of plans and dreams, but I mean, toys, puzzles, board games, and books are definitely top of the list. Or kids magazines, with the I would love to do something with, how do you say, like little games inside a kids magazine,
Oh,
like a
right.
word search or yeah,
Activity
activity
sheet,
kind of.
mazes.
Yeah, yeah. And of
Yeah.
course my own printables, because I have many, many ideas for printables, but I just don't have the time to make them and also like work on my portfolio and client work and
Right.
stuff like that. So it's a lot, but yeah, I would love
That's what
to.
I was going to segue into, that of, how much of your day is creating, and how much is it, the business side of things. I know a lot of people want it to be mostly the art, and
Yeah,
as you ran the shop, it's also so much of the business and
yeah,
figuring out the right path, and that's hard for the creative brain to kind of hop back and forth. But
yeah, definitely.
for you, have you been finding that too? It's just like there aren't enough hours.
There are definitely not enough hours, and I always feel like I'm behind things, even though I'm not. It's just like a feeling of, oh, I want to do so many things, but it's a slow process. It takes a lot of time to make them, make the drawings
Yes.
and the illustrations, and I just have to be patient. But now I'm like, before this, or before my kid went to elementary school, I had 3 full days to work. Now I have a little bit more because he's going to elementary school, so I have a little bit more space, but still it's not
Right.
enough. It's not full time because I'm not able to do that it full time right now.
And I think that's important for listeners to understand, that it often can't be.
No.
The arts aren't something that is can often produce a full-time
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
or time, or and to fit it in when you can, and to balance that with living and the business side,
yeah.
and all of the things that have to go into it, and your peace of mind, and
Yeah.
your space
Your
for yourself.
sanity and your, yeah. But also my arm, because I have been
Yes.
struggling with um some overuse, or how do you say, yeah, like my
Yeah.
arm and my wrist really
Mhm.
feel sore after I've drawn
Oh,
a
right.
lot of things, because the drawings I made now are like colored in with scratchy kind of
Motion, yes.
motions, yeah, so that my wrist doesn't like that. But I now have like a more Ergonomical, is that a word?
Ergonomic,
Ergonomic,
yes.
yeah.
Ergonomical, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I'm more of like a setup that works for me. So, but I have to keep in mind that I also need to stretch and need to take pause and just do something else and move my body and stuff like that. But it's hard because I just want to keep going and making, but I also have to like look after myself, and that sometimes is an issue. But
It's important to know that others have, you see, there's so much out there that's coming into, our visual space, and we're thinking that everybody is producing nonstop every
yeah,
second of the
no,
day,
no.
and it cannot, if they are, they're a machine,
Yeah,
but
exactly. A factory.
it to pause and like kind of come back to, it takes time to make something special, and our bodies are limited in that,
Yeah.
and that we can just
And it's
have to
hard.
just be patient.
Yeah,
It
we have to
is,
be
because we have the
patient.
ideas are there and you want to keep
Yeah.
making all the things all the time. And
Yeah. I've so many. Yeah, it's impossible. But I think the thing is, we need to keep in mind that rest and the stretches and all of that thing, all of those things are part of the process, and it's not like separate from the process. But you can't just draw like from 9 to 9 and then go to bed and then 9 to 9. It isn't possible. You have to like live your life as well and just look after yourself. So this is a reminder to myself mostly because I keep forgetting that. But also what works for me is also really recognizing my own state of mind. So with the ADHD diagnosis came a lot of like soul searching and a lot of working out how my mind works. And now I do know myself a little bit better, so I can recognize when I'm like, okay, I want to create, but I'm not, it doesn't work or something, it doesn't click. Then I'm like, okay, then do something else. And
smart.
sometimes I recognize when I have to push through. And sometimes I recognize that I'm very distracted and very all over the place. And I just have to walk and make a voice memo to my friend and just talk to her. You recognize your own state of mind. So like a 9 to 5 job is, I mean, it sounds stupid, I think, but it's hard as an ADHDer and in general, because as a human
Absolutely.
it's also hard. Because you have to be productive between these times. And I still have to do that because now I'm like, I have a kid who goes to school, and in that time I have to be productive. So that's also
Right.
hard.
And if it might not be the best timing for you, like a
Yeah.
lot of ADHD or especially
Yeah.
creatives, like they work better in the evening. Everything is
Yeah,
quiet around them. The world
exactly.
has slowed down, and it's hard to
Yeah.
produce things when you can't, have
Exactly.
your
When you're
mind in the
in
right
that,
space.
yeah, in that space, yeah. But being a self, how do you say, like an entrepreneur, being freelance,
Right.
you can do a little bit more with your time. So I can do it in the evenings as well. So I'm like sometimes in the morning, and I'm like, it doesn't work for me right now. So
No.
I'm going to do something else, and then tonight I'm going to finish it, and that's okay. And I really like that. So
That's good. That's yeah. Is speak. So this kind of helps. I was about to say, that, that's great advice to give. But what advice would you give to yourself, or those kind of coming up in age who want to pursue, their creative journey? What kind of advice would you give to yourself or them about how to be or to think or to pursue things in creativity?
very good question. A lot of things, but mostly like learning what I said like earlier, learning about yourself. How do you work best, and what doesn't work for you? It's okay to be different than anybody else. So it's okay if it doesn't work for you. If everyone is like, you should do morning pages, or you should get up at 6 and go run and whatever. If it doesn't work for you, it's not for you, and that's okay. Finding your own way and your own pace is very important. And give yourself grace, when it doesn't work.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and I could like probably think of a million things I would have said to my younger self. But I'm very grateful to
Yes.
have had that journey of like opening a shop at 20, not knowing what I was doing, being a little delusional and a little naive. And I think,
right, many people might, shut down that process because,
yeah,
XYZ, this would happen. But to go ahead and just take that risk and explore that is amazing.
and I'm also very like aware that it is a privilege to have been being able to do that, to
Right.
open a shop at 20. I mean, I didn't have any funds, but I did live at home. The not so fun part was that my parents, at the time, it didn't go well at all. So it was a very chaotic time at home. But
Sure.
still, they were very supportive, and so it's a privilege to have that, of course, and I'm very thankful for that. But I didn't know what I was doing, and I think looking back, that was like a gift, because if I did know what I was doing, I wouldn't have done it, because I was like, this is not a very financially normal risk to take, or like go to school, you know. um, and now I'm very grateful that I did take the leap. So now I want to be a little delusional as well. You know, I want to take them.
Good.
Like, I've learned a lot
Do
about
it.
myself, a lot of about running a business and doing work, you know.
Right.
But I also want to stay like a little, maybe like believing in a fairy tale. And then you get you get a lot of fun during an adventure, and you might end up somewhere where your dreams come true. So yeah.
That's perfect for wrapping things up because it is
Yeah.
the end, it's the end and the beginning, and
Hmm.
every piece is a new part that might build into something new.
Yeah,
And I love
yeah.
it. I do want to make sure we get your where people can find you. I'll put it in the show notes as well, but where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram. My name is just my handle, so Lisa Manuels. And I also have like my own website with a web shop, so where I sell my printables and my prints of the tiny cottages. I also sell them as prints. And yeah, I'm mostly over there. I'm also on TikTok, but I'm not very active over there yet.
There's so many things, and that's
So
so
many
hard. Yeah, it's
things.
just
Yeah.
that's another episode too. It's how do you manage
How?
social media with
Yeah. It's
the
a whole
work?
job. It's a whole job.
Yes.
Yeah, like managing social media, making content and stuff like that. Yeah. But I'm mostly over there. Yeah.
I am so excited that we got to talk. I love your work and I love the childlike, dream world with these little pieces. And I can see this thing happening with it and the potential it has. And I'm really excited that you were able to share. And I'm excited to share with our listeners about you and that they can find you. So I'm really excited that you were on the show with us, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was my first ever podcast and I loved it.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. And so for our listeners, if you enjoyed it and found this valuable, please share it with others so we can reach people who might like a bit of inspiration on their own creative journey. I'm Becky Gehrisch, and until next time, happy creating.
Hey there, creative minds! Are you ready for the next burst of inspiration? Make sure to subscribe to the Origins of Creativity podcast in your favorite podcast app for all our latest episodes. Visit BooklingMedia.com/podcast for show details, links to connect with us, and so much more. This has been the Origins of Creativity podcast, where inspiration meets imagination.